All right, hello and welcome to CampusGuard's online training live demo. My name is Kathy Staples. I'm the marketing manager at CampusGuard. We also have Tess Meyer, CampusGuard marketing specialist, to monitor any questions that you're submitting. Let's go ahead and go over this poll question really quickly. What does your current online training program look like? It looks like about 52% of you say your organization hosts online training internally. 29% say you use a third-party vendor to provide your online training. 10% your organization offers some training, but not a formal online training program. 8% of you, your organization is not currently offering online training. Okay, interesting. Thanks everybody who participated in that. Fantastic, good to know. We are recording today's demo, so look for an email with the link to the recording in the next couple of days. If you have any questions, make sure to enter them into the chat, and we'll try to get to as many as possible after the live demo. So we want your feedback about today's content, so please complete our brief survey after the event has ended. And all of you who've registered to enter, all of you who've registered, are entered into a drawing for a free CampusGuard hoodie. We'll announce the winner and we'll let you know within the next couple of days. The hoodies are awesome. I have two. I wear them all the time. Okay, so today we're doing a deep dive into CampusGuard's online training platform, resource library, customization options, and a lot more. So let's introduce today's presenter. As the Manager of Operations Support, Katie leads the team responsible for supporting and delivering CampusGuard services, including online training, vulnerability management, and the CampusGuard Central Portal. Katie's also the product lead for CampusGuard's online training services and assists organizations with their information security and compliance programs, and is responsible for coordinating the various teams involved. And with that, I'll turn it over to you, Katie.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks, Kathy, and good afternoon, everybody, or good morning, I guess, if you're on the West Coast. And thanks for joining. I know you're all busy, so we definitely appreciate your time. As Kathy said, I'm Katie Johnson, the manager of the Ops Support team, and then also the product lead for our online training. I've been with CampusGuard for a little over 7.5 years now. I'm super excited to show you our training courses and how they've evolved over the last few years, and actually based on a lot of customer feedback and your training needs. And I saw some names on here that I recognize, so happy to see that some of our current customers are joining the webinar today. If I go ahead and skip over to the agenda, just want to cover a few things. We'll provide an overview of CampusGuard. I'll give a little background on our online training services. I want to review the course library with you and all the available content, talk about various training requirements, some of those compliance regulations. We can discuss some of the current features, the different functionality that's found within the courses, and then I'll actually go into the live training demonstration and walk you through both the user side and the admin experience. And then I'll just quickly cover some of the customization options that are available to you, and then our standard onboarding process and ongoing support. And then we should have time for questions at the end, so feel free to use the chat throughout. Just note any questions you have as I'm going through everything, and then Tess will be compiling those and we'll answer as many as we can at the end. All right, so who we are, just a quick background of who CampusGuard is. CampusGuard was founded in 2009. We're a full-service information security and compliance consulting organization. Our teams are focused on providing services primarily to campus and community-based organizations. So think higher education, healthcare, state and local governments, municipalities, transportation, and hospitality. So as you can see from the list below, we provide a pretty wide variety of services for IT security and compliance assessments. Our Redlands InfoSec team provides vulnerability scanning and penetration testing, policy reviews and revisions. We do incident response planning and help facilitate tabletop exercises. We have a Treasury Solutions and Payments Advisory team. And then we also have the CampusGuard Central Compliance Portal for completing SAQs and more. And then, of course, our information security and compliance training. All right, so background on the online training product. We've been providing customers with our own in-house developed training since 2016, and our team started developing training content after we identified a need in the market for more comprehensive training following the compliance and gap assessments we were performing with our customers. So specifically around the need for PCI training, when the guys would go on site, we saw that a lot of customers had like a quick 4 to 5 minute video on PCI, and it wasn't really fully addressing the training needs for their merchant staff. So we started developing our PCI courses. And then that just grew into other trainings and other compliance areas as well. So for example, right now, definitely seeing an increased need in our GLBA training as schools are working to meet the new FDC safeguards rules requirements and making sure all of those staff that are in scope are receiving training. And we try to focus a lot of the content and all the courses on real life scenarios, users' experience in those campus-based environments and kind of their day-to-day roles and responsibilities. So it's information that's relevant to them and makes sense, and they can kind of relate it back to their job. All of the training is written and reviewed by our credentialed security experts, and we do update all of that content annually. So that just can help eliminate the need for your internal resources and funding to create training, saves you from having to keep up with all the evolving risks and changing regulations each year within your training. And then our training courses are currently delivered via our hosted platform. So I'll show you that today, or you can just purchase the training as a SCORM file, and that can be then uploaded to your own internal LMS platform. And you can share those courses out to your staff along with any other training that you might already be providing. All right, so a quick look at our currently available courses in the course library. As I mentioned, we started in the compliance area, so you'll see a lot of those different compliance-focused courses for PCI and GLBA, FERPA. We have the Factor Red Flags course, and then the HIPAA modules. So typically when we do assessments with our customers, then we can help, with those training programs that are required following. We do provide role-based options within some of the courses to just allow you to focus in on some of those specific employee responsibilities. So if you look at the PCI DSS compliance bundle, you'll see a PCI for IT course. So all of the IT or information technology staff responsible for securing systems, they don't really need to know, how to take a payment card or how to process a payment card, but rather they need to know how to secure those systems. So that course goes into a deeper dive of some of the more technical requirements. So we cover things like logging and change management and scanning from the DSS. And then the PCI for merchants course, that one's probably what most of your staff would take that are involved with payment cards, but it's really just covering more of the best practices, talks through how to securely accept and process payments, but it also covers the whys, things like why you shouldn't be collecting card information through email, covers things like the importance of vetting different third-party solutions, and then also new merchant do's and don'ts. So if a department on campus decides they want to start taking payments, this training is a great way to make sure they understand what they can and can't do. And then one course we added this year to the PCI bundle was actually from a customer request. And they had just pointed out that a lot of their student workers or their cashiers are just processing one card payment at a time. They don't really need that in-depth information around, SAQs or self-assessment questionnaires or the merchant responsibilities, but they just need to know how to take payments and how to protect devices. So now we have that shortened course that kind of pinpoints on those activities for those users. So we love that type of feedback, always looking for input on what sort of training is needed within your environments. So I think Kathy mentioned the survey at the end. Definitely love to hear what sort of training content you think you're missing in your program that we could help develop. And then we've also developed micro modules. So you see on this list of information security courses and the phishing course and the HIPAA course, these are all smaller kind of 8 to 10 minute modules. And that just allows your team to go through and select different modules from within the course set to target different departments. You can target different roles with different modules. So maybe if you look at like your finance department or your fundraising staff, they don't necessarily need all of this information, but they might need a focus on things like internal controls, or maybe the remote work environment module would be good for them if they're working from home. So it just allows you to kind of customize and tweak and build a course that best fits your organization or best fits those departments. So the InfoSec course, the information security course, currently consists of 16, soon to be 17 available modules and topics to choose from on this list. So we cover things like social engineering, password management, cybercrime, remote work environments, third-party risks. You can probably read on here, but you can also either kind of roll out all of these trainings at once as an annual training, or you can use the modules to create an ongoing campaign. So one or more modules can be rolled out like in a monthly campaign or a quarterly campaign, or you could focus on specific topics each month. And then our phishing training on here, it can be used alongside the InfoSec modules, or we've had some organizations that use it more as sort of focused training or targeted to staff who have clicked on a test phishing link, or if they've responded to one of the internal phishing simulations. And that way you're just providing those users with some additional awareness training, giving them some examples of phishing messages, kind of key indicators or red flags to look for, and kind of helping them improve their security. And then if I click over to the next slide, we do also have what we call the resource library, and every course has a related library that just contains supplemental handouts, has sort of posters and checklists and things that can be used alongside each course to provide ongoing awareness information outside of maybe your regular course training window. So we'll take a look at some of these in a moment when I go over to the live platform. But these can just be used and to send out to your users, or maybe print out and post in an office or something to keep security top of mind. And then our team also publishes monthly blogs if you haven't checked it out, and articles. So we'll send those out in the newsletter when you're a training customer, and you can just use those too to include in your maybe internal email newsletters, or send out to employees online. All right, I'm gonna just pause here for a second. Kathy, if you want to kick out that second poll, we have just another quick couple of questions for the audience. So this first question, does your organization require all users to complete information security training annually? So I know some customers we work with, they require that annual training. Some kind of offer it, but maybe it's not required. And then I know there's still a few that don't have that as an option within their organization. So I'll give you just a couple seconds to answer that if you yes, no, or maybe you're not sure. Maybe just another few seconds. All right, it looks like the majority of you do. We can go ahead and share those results. Awesome. So it looks like, yeah, 80% of everyone has a information security awareness program, so that's great. 15% no, and then just a small 5% that are unsure. And then for that second part of that question, this is more geared towards our higher education customers that are on the call. So I know there was quite a few of you. Just sort of curious if you're providing information security awareness training for your students, whether you're offering that as kind of an optional resource to them, or if that's something you've been considering. I know we've been talking a lot internally about having some more student-focused courses available. Maybe another couple seconds on that poll. Looks like this one's a little more evenly split. All right, so yep, it looks like 41% of the attendees are providing information security awareness training for students, 27% no, and then 30% unsure, or maybe it might not be relevant to you if you're not a college or university. All right, thank you, Kathy. I am going to move on. Before we go into the online training demo, I did want to talk just a little bit about some of the requirements for training that we see commonly across the industry, and how our courses have really been custom built to help your organization meet those requirements. Obviously, information security awareness really for all of your staff, anyone accessing your organizational systems or information. This should be provided at least annually, if not ongoing throughout the year. I know a lot of states have requirements for state and local agencies to provide their staff training, or your cybersecurity insurance provider might also have more increased requirements for frequent training or testing of employees that you must meet now in order to receive coverage. The PCI DSS, I talked a little bit about that before, but It requires any staff that are involved in the payment card process or can impact the security of systems within the cardholder data environment to complete, general security awareness training at hire and then annually thereafter. But those employees should also be receiving training around point of interaction devices or the terminals where payments are being taken, and then training on device inspections and how to protect devices from substitution and tampering. There is a new version of the PCI DSS that came out, PCI DSS version 4.0. So that comes into effect March 31st, 2024. So next year. And those requirements state that training must include information around social engineering and phishing now. It has examples of phishing messages, and then it also states that it should have training around acceptable use of technologies and then incident response readiness. So with our updated 2024 PCI training will encompass all of those new requirements, so you could use that to meet the new DSS version 4.0. And then that new version also requires organizations to refresh their training annually and make sure it's kept up to date with any evolving risks. GLBA training, that should really be taken by all staff that handle customer financial data. So the new safeguards rule that went into effect in June of this year, that requires that your organization is providing specific training around the risks that were identified in your annual risk assessment. And then the safeguards rule also dictates that training has to be kept up to date. It doesn't have, like an annual rule like the DSS, but just says must be kept up to date. And those on the security team must maintain their knowledge relevant to the threat landscape, so keeping up to date on risks and threats. HIPAA, all individuals accessing PHI data must receive training under the privacy and security rule. And then HIPAA dictates that organizations have to keep track of the training materials that they're using, and then just that they're monitoring workforce completion. And then CMMC, I think this one's a little up in the air. I know 2.0 has yet to be released, so evolving some, but really we've seen CMMC come more and more in line with the NIST 800-171 and the 172. So the 800-172 just addresses training as a control where system users are to be trained on risks associated with their use of specific systems and then the associated risks of their actions. So really that means employees should be receiving training on how to recognize different risks to their environment. So things like insider threats, social engineering, phishing. And then it also recommends that you are implementing exercises where you're testing your staff ongoing. Factor red flags, this should be part of your identity theft prevention program, making sure you're just training employees that have access to covered accounts on how to look for red flags and then how to report, do they know where, do they know how to report suspicious interactions or requests? And then last but not least, FERPA, for all of the higher education customers, all of the faculty and staff with access to student records, they should be receiving training each year on privacy and security of PII data and who to share information with, who not to share information with. So there's obviously a lot of different privacy and compliance regulations, and all of these kind of have that general security awareness training component, but it is important for staff to receive that more specific focus training based on the different data types they might have access to and then those different requirements. So one bonus I'll share that working with CampusGuard is that while we are a training content provider, and have these courses, you also always have access to our credentialed security advisor team. So those teams really specialize in PCI, they specialize in GLBA or privacy. So they can help you help explain, who within your organization should be taking training, help you narrow down that scope to certain departments or whatever that might be. All right. And then before I head over to the live system, I swear I am going to get there. Just a couple of notes regarding the CampusGuard courses and overall functionality. So all of the courses have been built with responsive content. They're all viewable from mobile devices, so employees can take those from home as they need to. All the training's interactive. It really does require users to stay engaged with the content, so they can't just, kind of kick off their training and let it play on another screen or click through it really fast. I think I've seen those memes where people are just clicking through the training to get it done. And then they have to actually be engaged, kind of go through different click-throughs. There's pop-up information to learn more, some gamification, and then videos throughout the modules. And then, as I mentioned previously, those smaller kind of micro 8 to 10-minute modules, those are just designed to let organizations be a little more flexible with their training and piece together courses for different areas that include different topics or different things that might be relevant to one group and not to the other. And then every module is always followed with a knowledge test. So either a quick multiple choice or true false question to help reinforce some of the key points, some of those key best practices, and then your organization kind of help structure those tests, make sure you get to choose the number of questions that are asked, that passing percentage, any of that. And then we can also build in policy acknowledgments to your training. So if you have your payment card policy or maybe your information security policy that you want users to sign off on annually, we'll just build that right into the training so they have to review and sign off on that as well. All of the training courses that you'll see are narrated, so that kind of brings me to our accessibility requirements. So all of our courses are designed with accessibility in mind. We incorporate all of the audio narration for all of that slide content. There's closed captioning notes built in for everyone, keyboard progression functionality, clear navigation throughout the modules, and then page titles everywhere, the use of color and contrast, text spacing and sizing, and then labels and instructions for all of the images used used throughout the modules. So we do have an up-to-date VPAT documentation that's available upon request, and all of the courses are WCAG level AA compliant. So if anyone wants to see that document, we can definitely share that with you. And then as I mentioned previously, the courses can be delivered via our hosted platform, which I'll dive into next, or you can purchase subscriptions, buckets of subscriptions for the course files just to be uploaded to your internal LMS and then shared out to your users. So I am going to actually jump over to the live training course. So you should see that now. What I'm showing here is just the CampusGuard hosted platform. This is obviously branded for CampusGuard. I do have some up here. Let me minimize this for just a second. My Zoom bar is blocking me from showing the rest of that. I just wanted to show you just a couple examples of how we can brand it for your own school or organization. So if you wanted to have your logo, your campus image or organization image here, we can do that. Here's another example of another institution that had us brand the platform for them, or you can utilize the CampusGuard version. So if a user is accessing the training, they'll just have a login and ID and a password. Let me go ahead and log in here. Think about my password for a second, sorry there. Or we can integrate with your single sign-on. So if you wanted to set that up so they're going through your central authentication service, we can go ahead and integrate and set up that single sign-on option. But they will just log in. I do want to start on the learner side. So once you're logged into the dashboard, a learner just sees all the courses that have been assigned to them. They can access course materials, they can come back and review things as needed, and they can review overall progress. So they're seeing, they have 18 courses. I've only completed one. I haven't been on top of my training. And then they can always download certificates. So if I received an enrollment notification, if I got a email from the system letting me know that I'd been enrolled in a new course, I'd just log in and then come out here to the training. So I'm going to actually show the InfoSec course first today. So you'll see kind of a quick blurb at the top, always explains what the course is about, kind of how long each module should take. They can track their progress up here at the top. And then as they're going through the training, you'll see like a little check mark beside a module once it's completed so they can easily see where they're at within the training. If I go into this first module, I can expand that. You'll see every course has over here on the side, if I expand this, kind of a course menu, so they're able to track their progress as they go, see what's upcoming, or if they do need to navigate back to another slide to review something, they can use that menu in that way. There's also a glossary within every course that just has some of those key terms, common terminology that's used throughout the courses that they can refer to. And then if I minimize that, I am actually going to launch this course and just let you listen to a little bit of one of our courses so you can see how that sounds.
This module will discuss what information security is and why it is important to everyone. The module is designed to provide all employees who have access to your organization's computer systems and networks with the awareness and motivation to protect and reduce the risk associated with managing sensitive information.
You'll see the user wasn't able to navigate forward until that audio completed, so it is sort of requiring them to be engaged and listen to that full training, and then they just use the little arrow to navigate forward, and then there was also those closed captioning notes that you should have seen playing at the bottom.
Information security is the protection of information and information systems from unauthorized access, use, disclosure, disruption, modification, or destruction in order to provide confidentiality, integrity, and availability. Confidentiality is achieved when information is only available to authorized individuals, entities, or processes. Data integrity means you are doing all that is needed to ensure that the data is as expected and hasn't been modified without appropriate authorization. Lastly, information must be available when it is needed, and information security provides the processes to support that requirement.
And then they're able to just keep navigating forward. This first module is kind of an introduction, really explaining to users, why information security is important.
Why is information security so important? Information is valuable. Just as you take steps to protect your personal belongings from damage or theft, like locking car doors and setting alarms, steps must be put in place to protect information as well. If information should fall into the wrong hands, it can be used to commit harm, steal resources, and damage reputations. As your organization continues to rely more and more heavily on computers and technology to store information, it is important to continually educate employees, customers, and third parties on how to protect sensitive information. Failure to do so can result in embarrassing and expensive consequences.
So that's just an example. Every module does have
to take steps to both prevent breaches from happening.
Sorry, I won't talk over the computer. Every module does have a video built in, so that you can kind of have that interactive video within the courses for your users and keep them engaged. And then see, this is just an example of some of those sort of click-throughs that they are able to engage with, and then they continue through the module.
Our daily lives with added mobility and convenience. Between apps that order food to be delivered, watches that track our daily steps, and refrigerators that track grocery lists, these advances are making our lives easier. But how do we also protect our privacy and ensure our data is secure?
And then just an example of sort of another click that they have to engage with, making sure they're staying on the training, proceeding through.
In many environments, including higher education campuses, we often see students and faculty trading security for convenience. Employees may try to resist protections like multi-factor authentication or longer passphrases because of the added time and effort it takes to access systems. It is important to balance security with convenience. Information security is also not just something you should want to do. In order to protect your data, it is mandated for many data types. Click the button below to see a list that includes just a few of the many standards and regulations requiring organizations to implement information security controls, but they each protect defined sets of data and have their own security and privacy requirements. Although compliance with these standards and regulations may be a driving factor for implementing controls at your organization, it is important to understand that compliance does not equal security. Information security requires a continuous and concerted daily effort from all parties involved. Many states have also enacted individual bills.
And this is just a quick example. I'm going to mute the volume for a second, of some of the things that they don't necessarily have to click on. So it's not a requirement in order to be able to proceed through the training, but this offers some additional information on some of the privacy requirements from the different states. So we'll continue to add to this map, but then they're just able to click on the icons and kind of see if they're interested about, Nevada's privacy law. Or the CCPA in California, just allows them to kind of engage and get more information as needed. And then I want to minimize this. I wanted to jump around a little bit just so I could show you some of the different modules and interactions. So I'm just going to go down here to the remote work environments course. Similar thing, but This one I was already in, so it kind of does tracking behind the scenes where a user was at. So if they do have to log out for some reason, get busy at their desk, they can always come back in and pick right up where they left off in the training. So if I click
Using
resume,
public devices can
kind of within
expose
this
you to
course,
malicious people and software because of the availability to anyone without any prior vetting. There is no guarantee of device security, and you have no idea of the machine's hygiene, including antivirus, firewalls, updates, and patches. You also have no way of knowing if a previous user installed malicious software or physically tampered with the equipment.
So I'll go ahead and click on these. But this module is really more about remote work environments. So for all the employees that might be working at home or if they're traveling or on the road, this is working them through kind of, how to do that securely and specifically about the public equipment and when to use equipment, how to use it, what not to use it for. And then if I go to this next screen, I just wanted to show you this is an example of where you could potentially customize the training. So this is directing them, to contact their help desk if they have questions, but we work with a lot of organizations to then provide the actual link to the help desk to submit a ticket or the phone number that they should be calling. So just a great way to kind of build in your own organizational information within the training. And then just a quick example of those knowledge tests that I talked about. So you can go through it is still being narrated. So that's being read to them and those questions, but they just go through and answer those questions. Make sure I get it right. And then if they were to get that question wrong, they'll be directed to answer it again. If they fail the quiz, they're able to go back through the training, review the course information again, and then complete the quiz. And it is pulled from a randomized test bank, so they're not presented with the same questions every time. Each user is getting different questions. And then they just get their results. And they're able to keep continuing on to the new modules or the next module. I do just want to go back really quick to the main menu, just show you a quick example of one of those compliance courses. If we go into the CampusGuard, the PCI for Merchants course, like I mentioned, this is kind of high level for all of the merchant staff. This one's broken up into 4 modules. So introduction to PCI DSS, payment card security, identifying risks, and then complying with the PCI DSS. And then this is where we talked about that payment card acknowledgement. So an example of where you would just be able to build this in and have a link right to your own internal policy or procedure. And the user would click there, review that information, and then they're acknowledging that they've read, understand, and agree to comply with your payment card policies and procedures. So once they'd clicked on that link, they'd just be able to submit yes, click yes, and then that's going to be tracked and documented. So where you have the reports that show they took the training, you also have that report that shows they went through and acknowledged your policy. So that can be done in our system, or we can actually build it right into your SCORM file as well if you want that on your own internal LMS. And then if I go back one more time, just a quick look at the resource library, I'll go into the PCI DSS resource library. Again, this is just supplemental content that you can share with your users. So if I click on the new merchant do's and don'ts, a poster that maybe you could hang up in an office or just something you might want to include in an internal newsletter. So we're always adding to these content libraries, and you can just come out and access that and see if there's anything that's relevant to your users. Here's a payment card security phishing prevention example. Just some good tips and tricks that users need to keep top of mind. And even if you're using the SCORM file, so even if you have the training on your own LMS, you'll just have access to this CampusGuard platform, the administrators, and you'll be able to come out and look for that content and utilize that information. All right, so now if I go back into the training, I do want to show you some of the administrator tools. So if you're an administrator within the platform, you don't have to have a separate login. You're able to just kind of toggle right over from your learner dashboard to your administrator dashboard, and then you'll have access to several different tools. User maintenance, you can always add new users, enroll them in training, assign them to different groups or different course materials. So if I go in here to the users, I can just search for a username, narrow that down, then I'll just open up John's account. You can see all of that information, set their roles, activate them, inactivate them if they were to leave the institution. And then there's also custom fields that you can use to sort them for different reporting purposes on like location or department or job title. And you can update any of that information as needed. One of the cool features I use a lot actually is just the ability to log into a user's account. So this is great for troubleshooting if they don't understand, why they haven't completed a course, why they're still getting reminders, or maybe they're having an issue proceeding through a training course or something. We can just log right into their account as them and kind of see their view and see what might be going on and able to support them in that way. Up here at the top, if you wanted to assign a course to this user, you would just come in, click the little plus sign to give John access to the HIPAA training, or see if they'd completed any other training that had been assigned to them. And then you can also always track progress and see sort of progress within a course when they were enrolled, when they completed that training, and then how much time they actually spent within the training. You could look at a user certificate, and then there's also sort of an audit trail, a timeline of all user activity that you can come back into as needed. If I go back to that dashboard, if I look at the courses as an administrator, you can just see all of the courses that are available to you. And then you can see all users assigned. If I go into this merchant course, I can click over to see all the users that have been assigned to that course and whether or not they've completed it or not. One thing I did want to mention is that courses can be set up to be reset annually. So kind of automatically enrolling users on their anniversary date when their new training is available, or you can set up just a calendar date where we do a mass enrollment of all users into a course. So a lot of organizations for PCI will just set up their course to launch prior to their self-assessment questionnaire window. So it kind of sets the stage for, the merchant responsibilities again that year. They'll take the training in March and then the next month maybe kick out their SAQs. So either way, it can be set up to automatically re-enroll users, or it can be kind of a manual re-enrollment on a specific date. And then you can also always jump over to reports from here. If I'm looking at the PCI for Merchants course, you can get sort of a quick overview of progress within the course. Again, see your users. If I go back, and then you can also look at any completion of those SCORM files and then a timeline of the different user activity within that course. And then one more thing I want to show you out here, if we just go into this reports profile, again, kind of a quick overview of all training within your organization, but I think this infographics area is great. If you have a board report that you need to provide some stats on across for training, you can pull any of these graphics out of this section to show how your users are progressing through those different courses. There's a training matrix that just shows, how training is assigned across your organization. And then again, that kind of audit or activity trail that shows you what administrators or what users are doing within the training. And then one other thing, I'm going to jump over to my actual account. I wanted to show you kind of how we set up some custom reports. So sometimes if organizations need certain fields, maybe the departments, job titles, those type of things within the reports, we can help you set up custom reports. And then these can always be sorted on by those different fields. Maybe if you want to see status of who's completed it, who hasn't, you can sort on those fields. Those reports can always be downloaded easily as an Excel file. You can come in and actually set up what information you want to see on those reports. So maybe what it includes, if you want to specify down to a certain department level, and then what fields you're seeing. So for this, organizations utilize this quite a bit for those department level administrators. Maybe they don't want them logging in, but they do want them to receive reports. So we can come in and say, I want this person to receive a training on just these department users every 2 weeks on Monday. And then that report just gets sent to their inbox, and it really makes those departments more accountable and responsible for their staff. And then one other thing, show you here in the events engine. This is where I was talking about being able to set up enrollment notifications to the users and then also reminder messages. So you can kind of come in, provide them with, this is why you're being asked to take the training. This is when you're being required to take it by, and then this is how you log in and actually get access to the training. So we'll work with your organization to set up these messages in the beginning, and you can customize that content. And then it'll just be sent out to users as they're added to a specific group or assigned to a course. And similarly with the course reminder messages, these can be customized and set up to go out, every 2 weeks or every week. And then those users are just being reminded until they've completed their training. All right, so I think those are kind of the main things. If once we get to the questions, if you guys want to see anything in more depth, I'm happy to do that. But before we go back to the slides, I think, Kathy, if you want to just kick off the final poll for everybody. And this one, what is the #1 complaint? Hopefully, maybe you're not receiving complaints, but which complaint are you receiving about training requirements from your users? So is there too much training? Do they think it takes too much time away from their other tasks? Do they see the same training every year, year in and year out? Or is it not relevant to their job role? We should have probably added a 5th option, like we use CampusGuard training and no complaints. Just kidding, that might be a little bit of a stretch. Mm. All right, we'll give you just a couple minutes to take this one. Okay. All right, so it looks like kind of all of the complaints. 30% say too much training, 30% takes away from other tasks, and 28% same training every year, and then a smaller 11% not relevant to their job role. All right, I am going to jump back over to my slideshow. The live demonstration we obviously covered, but then just a few things on that customization. I know we saw the different pages where you could brand and put your logo and pictures on the login page, but we're also able to brand the actual training slides. So if you want your logo on the training slides, whether it's the SCORM file or within our platform, we can add that information and custom branding to the content. And then we can also build in different policy and procedure links, build in different contacts for people to report incidents to, like your help desk information. You might want to link to outside resources, but just want to make sure it kind of aligns with your organizational procedures, build in any policy links or things that you find relevant. And then you're also able to determine navigation criteria. So if you want to restrict people from advancing through the slides, if you don't want them to be able to kind of jump around within the training, that's all customizable. And then also the completion criteria for them to pass a course. If you want them to have to view all slides or answer a quiz or get a certain passing percentage, we can work with your teams to make those adjustments. And then again, the knowledge test, just those number of questions asked and quizzes. And then just a quick note, if you were to partner with CampusGuard on your training, our implementation process just always starts off with a kickoff call. So we'll introduce your teams, our teams, and walk through the training launch plan. You always are assigned a customer relationship manager from CampusGuard or a CRM, and that'll be your primary point of contact. And then our operations support team is always there to assist with implementation and configuration of the files. And then myself as the product lead, also always here to help with anything and help address questions. But on that kickoff call, we'll just discuss, the different courses you might be interested, the different modules you want to use, and then what will provide the most value to your different user groups. And then we can start kind of planning out that training plan, plan for any adjustments, any customization you might want done, and then review the timeline for launch. And then from there, our teams just go back, we build in any of that custom content, and then we allow your team to test and approve the training. And then we'll work with you to import your user lists, set up different user groups, and then assign the appropriate courses and schedule progress reports to go out to either kind of the primary administrators or those department level admins. And then we also provide you with some basic training if you're using the CampusGuard hosted platform, kind of walk you through that whole process that I showed you of adding new users and assigning courses and viewing reports on demand, and then obviously provide some guidance documents around that as well. And then our team also provides ongoing support, so help with any user questions, password resets, anything that they have questions on, and then can provide some different templates and things for those enrollment notifications and certificates and different best practices. We've worked with a lot of different customers, so have experience with training and can kind of help you roll out your program as well. And then, as I mentioned, the annual content updates, updating that information every year as risks and requirements change. We like to include different best practices. We include a lot of breach statistics or things from like the Verizon Data Breach Investigations Report, talk a lot about lessons learned from recent incidents, and then hopefully kind of leading users on how to prevent mistakes at their organization. All right, and with that, I think I have probably talked enough, so I'm going to turn it back over to Kathy and Tess to see if we have any questions that might have come in or if there's anything you wanted to see in the platform in more detail.
Awesome,
Thank
thank
you, Katie.
you. We actually do have a handful of questions. If you guys have any questions that you haven't asked yet, just go ahead and use that Q&A box and send them in, and we'll go ahead and get them answered. The first question for you, Katie, can you use one training to satisfy multiple training requirements, i.e. general security training, FERPA, GLBA, etc.?
So yes, in some ways. So I think we usually call it like the 80-20 rule. So that information security awareness training does meet kind of at a high level a lot of the requirements from all of those different compliance regulations. But then for those user groups that are specifically, accessing payment card information, they'll need that additional PCI training module, or users that are accessing protected health information, like for HIPAA, they do need those focus courses, but the general information security awareness course does cover a lot of it, and that'll meet, a large chunk of your audience, but then just narrowing down into those different compliance requirements for the information they might be accessing, it is required.
Awesome. The next question, in the CampusGuard portal, can we recommend rather than require our elected officials to watch their training?
Yeah, we can. So just based on kind of your user group, we can set it up so that a training is either out there as optional for them, that it's not required and they're not getting those ongoing reminders or anything. It's just out there as an option that they can access. We have a couple schools that do that, provide some GLBA training out to like different user groups. So yeah, that's definitely an option to have it out there and just let them access it as needed.
Can we add courses specific to our organization into the CampusGuard portal, or is the portal only used for CampusGuard trainings, i.e. showing how to check out our credit card terminal for tampering?
Okay, I think that'd probably be something we might have to chat with them on. We don't usually bring in a lot of external content to the CampusGuard training platform, but it might be something as simple like that you just mentioned about the credit card terminals. That might be something we could incorporate along with the PCI training, just like we do those payment card acknowledgments. So I think that might be a case-by-case basis and kind of see if it's related to the training we're providing or if it's totally something different, then that might not be. But yeah, we can talk about that.
Awesome. Is there a cost for branding and customization?
There is a cost for branding, so we can definitely provide you with pricing. I should have mentioned pricing is usually based on user subscription levels. So you buy kind of a bucket of licenses and how many users are accessing that training. And then there is an additional kind of a block of 5 hours for customization that then you can use to have us brand the training or add in different policy links and procedures, that type of thing. Yep.
And then another question, how does an administrator view the email template and reissue an email to a user if they lost their email with the training link?
Yep, absolutely. So if a user can't find that initial email that has their access instructions, then an administrator can go in and just kick that email back out. So we can have them kind of re-enroll them in the training, or they can go back and find that email and send it out again. You can always contact our operations support team to have them send that again. But we also typically build in kind of that same basic information from the enrollment message into all of the reminder notifications. So they don't just get a reminder that says, hey, go take your training. It's also saying, hey, you have this training. This is how you log in and access and everything. So if they miss that initial email, they're getting that next email again a week later. And then we always encourage organizations to send out sort of an internal note before we launch the training, letting them know to expect an email from CampusGuard so they don't think it's phishing. We don't want to be training on not clicking on a link from an unrecognized organization and then sending out an email asking them to click on a link. So we have you send out that internal note, letting users know that it is a safe and trusted sender.
Okay, and that's all we have for questions, unless anybody has anything else to send in.
I had a quick question about, I think you may have touched on it a little bit, but what is it best to do the training all at once, or should we break it up over a course of the year? What's the best way to roll that out?
Yeah, I think so. With some of the compliance courses, those are a little shorter. I think those are usually done once per year, like the payment card, the PCI, or the GLBA. Those are rolled out on an annual calendar basis. But for the information security awareness course, definitely breaking it up is better. Kind of piecing together a few of those modules and rolling it out either quarterly or monthly. I think we've worked with some institutions to kind of set that up. So every month a new course is going out. So like next month, Security Awareness Month or whatever that's called. What's October? The National Cybersecurity Awareness Month. So yeah, using that month to maybe have a campaign and then lumping in some of the phishing training or social engineering training with that month's campaign. And that way users are just kind of getting small bite-sized training. It takes, 15 minutes out of their day that month to get some training and then continuing on throughout the year.
Yeah, that sounds good. So not cramming all the information at one time, but more bite-sized pieces.
Yeah, not as big of an ask to make them sit down for an hour and take training that way.
Absolutely. Do we have any other questions? Anybody have anything else to ask, or think that might be it? Well, I want to say thank you to Katie so much for your presentation and walking us through our online training platform. And for everybody who attended our live demo, really appreciate it. Just a couple quick reminders to please take a couple of minutes to complete our brief survey right after this. We'll also be sending an email to everybody in the next day or two that'll have a link to the recording and the presentation. We're also going to email the winner of the free hoodie, which is really important. So you'll be hearing from me in the next day or two for that as well. If you have any questions you think of later, feel free to let us know. And just thanks again, and everybody have a great day.
Yeah, thank you, everybody. I think if there's other questions, definitely reach out. And then also, if you'd like a demo ID, I'm always happy to set those up. If you just want to see some of the content in more detail, I didn't want to force you to see too much today, but if you want to step through as a user, happy to let you do that. So thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.